Hello. My question is somewhat unformulated because it's a question around a bit of confusion. I have been a manifester for a very long time in my life. I've attracted lots into my life. It's been a playground for me. I've had a lot of fun. And I've attracted some pretty interesting situations and run into some pretty interesting and powerful forces at the very peak of organization, whether it be governmental or Illuminati or one thing another. What I've seen is people really love each other, and I'm just wondering what it is that we as such a mass amount of love allow such a few to control such a beautiful planet, and what is the breakthrough there?
Well, they don't control it. In other words, the belief that they do thwarts your experience, but they don't. In other words, no one can get in your vibration. No one can vibrate you. You can observe something that you disagree with and induce a vibration of resistance within yourself, which causes you to deprive yourself of well-being. But you're still doing it to you.
I agree with that. I'm just looking for a little help then on when you get to a place where you are deemed to be outside of the system. You're deemed to be a real nonconformist, and you've become a challenge to the established way of thinking. What is the best way to deal with that?
Well, if you take them off of your list of things you give attention to, you will stop activating the vibration of them in your vibration. You will become a non-issue to them. There is no assertion, there's only attraction. So if you stop giving attention to the fact that they're giving attention to you, then eventually you become invisible to that which they are about. But there are so many who take a stance that they believe is a more appropriate stance, and then instead of withdrawing, they push against. And so you believe that they are powerful. And in your belief that they are powerful, you expect them to see you. And you not only expect them to see you, but you expect them to have power over you. And so they do. You see. But when you say, but wait. This is a vibrational universe, and I'm in charge of my vibration. And while we are all in this together, in that we bounce off of one another, no one has power in my experience, because no one can make me vibrate. I can be a selective sifter. Now, we will say to you that you've heard a lot here today about thinking your way, or feeling your way is a better way of saying it, into a vibrational place, an emotional place. So what would you say the emotion is that you feel around this? Does it feel like resentment? Does it feel like desire? Does it feel like fear?
It's desire to have absolutely unlimited freedom without somebody telling me the way I can or can't go about it.
Well, that's what freedom is, isn't it? In other words, what you're bringing us back around to is that your natural state is one of utter freedom. You are so free you can choose bondage. You get to offer the vibration, and everything that you live comes in response to that. So on this emotional scale, we're not kidding. On the far end of connection is that feeling of freedom. And on the other end of it is that feeling of disempowerment. So there is empowerment and there is disempowerment, and that is the emotional range. And there are so many who feel so disempowered that they gather their forces in order to try to feel powerful by corralling you and trying to make you behave in one way or another. And if you could ignore them, you would never be caught in their net, ever. It's sort of their problem, you see. But there are so many benefits to being part of this collective consciousness. In other words, you gain much more than you lose by co-creating. But as we said earlier, you can pick and choose where you co-create. If we were standing in your physical shoes, we would make a decision that we are going to start making the best of it, And we would not justify our position by pushing against that, because that's the way you invite that into your experience. This is a universe based on inclusion. So when you see something you want and you say yes to it, you include it in your vibration. But when you see something and you say no to it, you include it in your vibration. So the things you push against most are the things that are most active in your vibration. And that's what makes you then believe that they are a problem, because you saw them as a problem, you pushed against them, you talked about them, you got on your soapbox, you joined the organizations, you beat the drum, you spoke very loudly about it, you activated your vibration in a powerful way, and bam, they're right there giving you grief all the time. And you say, see, I told you this was a problem. And we say, you create it. You create the truth by virtue of your vibration. And so Jerry only ever puts his seatbelt on when Esther says, left lane, policeman coming, looking your way.
Okay. I get the picture.
But he doesn't buckle it. He just drags it across his lap.
Perfect.
It's his way of saying, I'll play your silly game if it makes you feel better.
Yeah.
But I am free to move about the cabin as I desire. If those policemen saw what goes on in Jerry and Esther's motor coach while they drive, they change drivers at 85 miles an hour on an open road. In other words, well-being follows them everywhere they go. Yes.
Okay.
Good enough?
Good enough. It's just about, I guess you got to sometimes play a little bit by the rules when somebody's, it's about judgment. I mean, I have definitely led a lot of people to a sense of freedom, and because I am at the front of a freedom movement, then I got sort of in the spotlight, and it was the first time in my life I ever ran into a situation that, which you really helped me get a grasp on, is that I am creating that vibration, and it's nice to be reminded of that. But the thing that I'm wanting to do is to continue the mission. I want to continue what I am doing, and I want to know how to, I guess, placate and get these different energies working together.
Well, it's an interesting thing. It's impossible, in fact, to be part of a movement that pushes against something not wanted and be in a vibrational place to allow what you're wanting. And what happens is the people that have gathered around this movement are of a mindset that they want to do it through force or through action or through numbers or through legislation or through voices. And it's not the easiest thing to then help them to understand that we're going to do it vibrationally. In other words, the most powerful freedom movement that we can imagine is one where you as an individual say, I'm free to feel the way I feel. And even though you are doing things that make me feel bound and make me feel resentful, because those feelings don't feel good to me, I'm going to find a way of approaching you that does not feel that way. And it's a really strange thing when you find yourself able to look at what you despised or look at what you disagreed with and find a way of looking at it and feeling good. That's the only place that utter freedom comes from. Because you see, most people say, I want to feel better, and these circumstances make me feel so bad. So we've got to change these circumstances so that I can feel good. And, you get so lost in that because you cannot change all of those circumstances. It's too much organizing. It's beyond anyone's power. You can't do it. You cannot buck that current or those forces, you see. So then when you say, I am the liver of unconditional love, which means I am able to feel good even though this is going on, that is the only place that utter freedom comes from. I have the freedom to feel as I choose to feel in spite of these conditions. And once you achieve that, then you are free. And once you are free, then your light shines and others can follow, you see.
Okay.
Test it out. In other words, there are parents whose happiness depends on whether they can get their children to take the garbage out. And they spend lifetimes not feeling free because they can't compel them to. Or there are parents that feel that they cannot feel good unless their children make the same choices that they would have them choose. And so they never find joy. In other words, there are so many people who are letting their happiness be hung up on the behavior of someone else. And it's such a waste of life because it's not your job to control them. It's not even your job to guide them. Our job as teachers of well-being is to help you to understand that you get to go anywhere you want to go and be anywhere you want to be and do anything you want to do. In other words, you get to choose it all. You just have to line up with the vibration of that desire. So we do not feel unhappy ever if you are someplace other than where you want to be, because we fixate on the potential of where you are going. We don't allow ourselves to lament your being in Yuma, even though we know you want to be someplace else. We know that you understand all of this.
I do.
And as we are bringing this to an ending, we want to speak about freedom. And we want to reactivate within you what you really know from your non-physical vantage point, and what you really knew as you made the decision to come here, and what you're really reaching for, remembering, or reactivating in your vibration. This is a vibrational universe where only good flows. The only source that flows is the source of well-being. And we are all, physical and non-physical, we are all free to allow that well-being to flow to us and through us, or we can pinch it off. It is our call every time. We came forth knowing that we have built-in guidance that lets us know the vibrational nature of our being in every powerful moment. And we knew, and many of you are coming to remember now, that the way you feel is your indication of whether you are using your freedom to think in a way that allows that goodness to flow or pinches some of it off to some degree. You knew that you could never separate yourself from this stream of goodness, that even though you might pinch it off and feel uncomfortable for a while in this physical setting, that in the moment of your releasing and reemerging back into non-physical, that you would reclaim that knowledge of freedom. It is our desire that you see this world as a free world, and you see everyone in it as trying through their individual experiences to find their way back to that calling, back to that guiding light, back to that source energy. And even though there are billions of them going about it in a way that is different than you would choose, there's no right or wrong way. In other words, bless them all and get on with the only thing you have any power about, which is opening your vortex or closing your vortex. But the choice that you make is evidenced by the emotion that you feel. And tell others.
Okay.
We have enjoyed this interaction immensely. It is delicious to come together with those like you who are coming into your remembering of the powerful, beloved, blessed creators that you are. It is supposed to be fun, friends. Make it so.
I was wondering if you could tell me what the difference is between letting go of a negative emotion and denying a negative emotion. And secondly, what happens to the negative emotions if you deny them?
Well, again, semantics, words. But when you let go of anything, vibrationally speaking, it is because you have given your attention to something else. In other words, you can't just stop your vibrational offering. It's eternal. So we're really talking about focusing. So when you let go of a negative emotion, what you've done is you've focused somewhere else that produces a vibration that feels better. The difference between letting go and denying is sort of like the difference between saying yes to what you do want rather than no to what you don't want. Denial, now this is not always the case, but most people, when they are denying something, are pushing against the thing that they are saying no to, while letting go of it is no longer achieving vibrational alignment with it, so it's not a player in your vibration. What happens to it doesn't matter. In other words, where does it go? Because every thought that's ever been thought still exists. Every thought that has ever been thought by anyone in any dimension still exists. And so the only question that is really important is, what am I doing in terms of vibrational alignment with it, in terms of vibrational alignment and therefore vibrational attraction of it? It's sort of like there are streams or rivers of thought, and you can tap into them, and when you do, you have the ride that stream takes you. So that's sort of like saying, well, I know I want to get on this airplane because it's going to Boston, but where are all the other airplanes going? And we say, who cares? You want to go to Boston.
Thank you.
Very good. Now what? More things. Right there, then right there.